Spurgeon here with Revzilla, and today I am in Washington State, and I don't know what I'm more excited about, the fact that I'm finally getting to ride the Pacific Northwest, or that I'm one of the first people in the country to get to ride Honda's new CRF 450L. We have got a great day of riding planned. I'm super stoked to be able to hit some single track trails, some dual track, some actual highway, and we're going to see how this bike handles itself. So let's dive right into it. So the first thing that I think probably everyone wants to know is the engine, right? Is it just a dumbed down 450? Not at all. It's going to come from the same lineage as the CRF 450R. It's got a different cam profile, it's got different ECU, slightly heavier crank, and it actually works better for woods riding. This isn't an open motocross track, so just keep that in mind. But man, it's a completely different power delivery than the 450R. Figure it's like 80% of the top end power, but the rest of the power is just more linear in its delivery, and it's a little bit more usable when you get out in the trails. And the other thing is too, if you're riding from trailhead to trailhead, you don't need something that's, you know, spinning up and giving you crazy vibrations. You have a lot more nice mid-range pull in this. Now, the one area that I wasn't super stoked on with the engine was actually more with the throttle response. In some of the tighter stuff, very on-off throttle response, especially in first gear and the single track and stuff. I think that for, you know, somebody coming from the world of dirt bikes or motocross, it's not going to be as noticeable. It's very comparable to what you would notice in other 450s. I was talking to some of the motocross guys here, and they said, yeah, it's very part and parcel of what you'd find with a regular 450 motocross bike. But I think for folks coming from the adventure world or stepping down or maybe coming from the street, the throttle on this is going to come across as snatchy. So that's probably something I would want to work out, you know, in the aftermarket. The other thing that people seem to really have a lot of questions about was the suspension on this and whether or not it was going to be just kind of a budget suspension. It's the same base suspension as you're seeing in the rest of the CRF 450 line. They have changed the internals, and I am a larger guy. I'm like 215 right now. I was actually pretty impressed with how stout the suspension was on this thing. I was expecting it to be much softer. It's almost a little harsh. I would love to get a chance to play around with it and kind of fine-tune the compression and rebound settings and just kind of see if I can work some of that out. But I think for a lot of people out there that are afraid it's just going to be the same problem with that CRF 250L, where it's just way too soft, I think that this is going to be a nice surprise for a lot of folks. And the other thing, you know, we're on the street right now. Some of the other dirt bikes I've ridden, some of the other, you know, dual sports I've ridden from the Big Orange team have really felt like dirt bikes in the street. This, for those of you out there that are looking for a trail bike, but you also want to ride from trailhead to trailhead, it's a lot less vibey. Really where it's going to appeal to is people coming off of the adventure world. They're looking for something that's a little bit lighter. They want a true, you know, dual sport style trail bike, but they, you know, don't want a full-on motocross bike. I think that this is going to work for a lot of people. Now we're going to hit some of the trails right now. I'm going to check in with you guys in a little bit, but we're going to have some fun here in the Pacific Northwest. This is so rad! We don't have riding like this in Pennsylvania. Yeah, for all the people out there that want to know if it has enough power, you can literally just whip the throttle just a little bit and just right over these. Whoop. I'm not even good at wheelies. This thing makes it easy. Just posting up. Go! No, no, whoa! Down, 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 down. That way.
Everybody went down that way?
Everybody went that way.
Oh, okay.
This terrain is absolutely amazing out here. Super jealous of all you Pacific Northwesterners.
So our day's wrapping up. We got some awesome trails, some killer scenery, and I can take the Pacific Northwest and I can check it off my bucket list. And I'm gonna leave you with three main things. One, when I was riding around, we were talking about the suspension. I mentioned it felt a little bit harsh. I had some of the guys from Honda, they tweaked it, they adjusted the rebound and the compression damping, and it really made a big difference, much more plush. I'll give you all those settings in the article. The second thing, these tires, they are not the stock tires. These are Dunlop 606s. So if you wanna do the stuff that we were doing today, the stock rubber has got to go. The third main point that really kind of struck me, literally, is the handguards. Now, normally I am saying add handguards because I'm crashing large adventure bikes and I'm breaking levers. Not the case here. I was actually ripping through some single track, and not only were my knuckles getting smashed by tree branches, but one of those tree branches actually hit the front brake lever, and it made me quite a bit uncomfortable. So those are some of the main points, but what I really took away from the overall ride was the fact that Honda built a hell of a motorcycle, and it really fills a hole not just in their lineup, but also across the board for people that really just want a basic trail bike, but they want something that's more peppy than a CRF 250L, but they don't necessarily want to go out and buy an Africa Twin, or they don't want to be, you know, out racing around on a true on motocross bike. So I think there's gonna be a lot of people that are really happy with how this bike falls into Honda's line. Now, at this point, if you want to read all of my musings on the new CRF 450L, head over to Common Tread and I will give you all the nitty gritty. And as always, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube to keep up with all the videos we have rolling out at Revzilla.com. I want to thank you for joining me on my first adventure to the Pacific Northwest. I'm Spurge. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to MCN and Suzuki's brand new Katana. Now, it's not 1982, we're in 2019, and this is kind of the Katana reborn. Now, as you can see, it's based heavily on that GSX 1100 from 1982, and the Katana's having a little bit of a kind of renaissance at the moment because of the kind of the classic racing and the modern classic scenes becoming so popular. A lot of people are restoring old Katanas, and I myself race a Katana sometimes and race with Katanas, and they become quite special to me. They're fast in race trim and they look really, really cool. So it's quite fitting that Suzuki have made this Katana kind of replica, if you like. And before I go on, I'll just tell you that we're in Japan at the moment, and we're up in the mountains in Kyoto, and they've actually closed the roads down for us. So we've got about 10 kilometres of Gran Turismo roads to play on, and I've literally just come off this bike, not literally, and my hands are shaking with excitement. So I've had a really good time on it. But let me get down to the nuts and bolts of the bike. So basically, the chassis and the engine on this bike is basically the same as a GSX-S 1000. So you've got an engine which is a retuned GSX-R1000 K5 motor, tuned to give more grunt. It's got 148 horsepower, so it doesn't lack power, and it's wrapped in a really nice aluminium frame. You've got big Brembos, which are off the current GSX-R1000. You've got electronics, you've got a GSX-R1000 inspired digital dash, and you've got really, really good looks. I mean, I think they've done a really nice job on this, and the view I particularly like is that rear three-quarter view. Because you've got this hugger mounted rear number plate hanger, all the clutter's kind of gone from here. So the back end looks really clean and reminds me of those racing bikes. And in fact, it's the first time a Suzuki's ever had this kind of number plate arrangement, which I really, really like. Up on these mountain roads, it doesn't lack speed. It's got huge mid-range. Brakes are really good. In fact, better than the Superbike's brakes. It's got more feel. I think it's because it hasn't got the IMU, the EMU, to kind of mess around with the brakes. And it handles really well. Everything's perfect, but it's my job to be a little bit picky. So here goes. I mean, we all know the GSX 1000. It's got quite a snatchy throttle. And Suzuki have put a new throttle grip on this with a different cam, which does help smooth things out a little bit. But to be honest, below 30 mile an hour or 60k, it's still very, very snatchy. And you notice that at low speed, and you notice that off a closed throttle mid-corner, it's kind of... So that could be smoother. The way the suspension's set, it's quite hard at the front and quite soft at the back. So we started the day off this morning in the wet conditions, and it feels quite understeery. You can't quite get enough weight over the front. So it doesn't handle as well as it could do when the tyres are cold and when it's wet. But if you can push it hard, it starts to make sense. Kind of reminds me of the MT-09 in that respect. And the rear's just a little bit soft and bouncy. So, you know, the suspension could be a little bit more refined. The throttle could be a little bit smoother. But apart from that, no complaints. Who are its rivals? Well, you've got to say that this kind of retro style, modern bikey kind of thing, Z900 RS, you've got the CB1000R, and then if you're talking about other kind of superish nakeds, you've got the MT10 and you've got the Z1000. In comparison to those, the Kawasaki's probably a lot smoother. This feels very similar to the Honda, really. It's very fast, but just kind of lacks a layer of refinement that the European nakeds have got. So overall, I really, really like what Suzuki have done to the bike. I absolutely love the styling. It's really good fun to ride. Maybe lacks a tiny little bit of refinement, but I'm not too bothered about that because I've got one more session left on these amazing mountain roads, and I'm going to go and have some fun.